Hello everybody, welcome back. This will be part 2 of the Allis Chalmers WD45 project here. If you missed the first part, what I'm trying to do here is split the tractor and replace the inner seal here in between the hydraulic side and the transmission side and prevent that from leaking, because right now what's happening is it's leaking from the hydraulic side into the transmission, so I'm not able to use the rear lift. I won't know for sure until I get the tractor split and get my eyes up in there and see what's going on. So the purpose of today's video is to simply get that accomplished. Physically get the tractor split right there, right down this line right here. This is such a big project that I'm squeezing this in between my other projects. So these videos are going to be a little bit shorter than some of the other ones, but I think this is going to work out well when I just, sort of take small bites at this project and really be safe and careful with the thing. I'm happy with my preparations so far. I fabricated these steel posts, welded some feet on the bottom of them, drilled holes and mounted grade 8 hardware to the frame rail. And on the back side, I've also got plates welded to the uprights here. So we've got two different kinds of support going on right here. We have the bolts, and then we also have that plate on the back. So I'm happy with the way that the front half of the tractor is going to be supported. I think that's going to be just fine. I've got my alignment slant support rods installed on both sides, top and bottom. The ones on top are super high strength, and these bottom ones are more of your standard grade, medium. But these I ordered special online because not only did I want to use them as alignment pins, but I also wanted them to add some support to the thing. So that's why I went with super high grade steel on these top ones. Now for the rear support, I've simply got a floor jack, and let me get around here. I've got it underneath the support for the snap coupler, and this wooden adapter thing that I made for that Willys transfer case project happens to fit dang near perfectly for this job too. So this is going to be the main support for the rear section, and then these rods are going to just be additional support. So the only thing I have to do now to physically split the tractor is remove 6 bolts. There are 3 of these bolts on each side. So I'm going to get started on that, and then hopefully we can get this split apart. All right, well that broke loose easier than I thought it was going to. Let's hope we have that much success with the other 5. That was pretty good also. Okay, I've got 5 of them removed so far. Let me show you where they are. Of course, the top one is right there, on each corner there's one. The other one is right there where the tip of my finger is, and that was pretty easy to get to once I removed the hand clutch lever. The other ones are a little harder to see. If you can look right up in there, I'll try to zoom in with the camera. That's where the one is on this side. That's where the one is on the left side. And believe it or not, I was able to get an impact gun up in there with a universal joint socket, and I was able to get those out that way, so that was good. The middle one on this side is the only one left, and because of the way the transmission is cast there around the fill plug, you can't get a socket wrench on that, so I've got a 3/4 inch wrench on the head of the bolt from down below here, and it's a ratcheting wrench, so that makes that pretty easy. All right, I've got all 6 bolts out now, and you see right there we've got our first signs of separation, that little crack in the paint. And I also think I see just a hair of separation about halfway down there. All right, keep your eyes right here and right there. Let me go try the other side. Yes, we have separation. So I've got it split about this much so far. If you look real close, you can see down in there and see some shiny stuff, but it's not coming apart any further, and I know why. The steering column is holding the two halves together at this point. That was a big thing to overlook. It just didn't occur to me. I was focusing more down here, I guess. So rather than disconnect all this stuff, I think I'm just going to unbolt the steering column from the rear section of the tractor with these two bolts right here, and that will just be free then, and that'll be easy to put back on that way, I think, right? That way we don't have to mess with any of the linkage or anything like that. All right, got those two bolts removed, and this is just kind of, you know, dangling here now, but I do have it propped up with some wood so there's not a bunch of force on it while it's just sitting there. So let's get back to where we were and see if I can get this split a little bit farther. Yeah, we're getting some separation now, for sure. Okay, I'm going to stop here for a minute so we can take a look. I might not have to go any farther than this, but I am not sure. So let's see what's going on. There's a bearing. This is the input shaft for the transmission, of course. And there's a big old ball bearing in there. I'm not sure what this is. It looks like there might be a bearing in there, but it's just kind of a block off plate on the end. And then if we look on this side, you can see there's some sort of a material over this opening. This whole thing here is a gasket. I couldn't tell it was a gasket because it was so dirty. I just thought that was a metal surface. So let me get this gasket removed. This gasket is completely saturated with oil, especially on the lower part. I think it's safe to say that the gasket was not doing its job anymore. Well, fast forward about 3 days. I've had some time to process this and really think about it and do a lot of research on it. And let me show you what I figured out here. I've also got the cover for the hand clutch mechanism removed so we can see down inside there. So this whole time I've been thinking that the seal that needed to be replaced was over here, like maybe right in there. But that is not correct. So I'm going to explain this whole situation to you guys and also kind of to myself out loud to make sure that I'm still thinking correctly on this. The whole reason I'm doing this is because there was a leak from the hydraulic chamber into the transmission side. Now, if we look at this entire section right here, from here to right there, this is the hydraulic dipstick, and inside here is the hydraulic chamber. Well, inside this housing, somewhere about here, is an internal wall that separates the hydraulic side from the hand clutch slant transmission side. So if you look at that gear right in there, not too far behind that gear is a bearing, and that bearing sits inside that internal wall that separates the two chambers. And that is where the leakage is occurring. It's not occurring over here, it's happening over here. So the next layer to this equation, this of course is the transmission. This is the transmission input shaft. That shaft ends right about here, and there's a gap in the clutch mechanism for the hand clutch, and then a different shaft starts somewhere right in there and extends to somewhere back there. Well, that is the clutch shaft, if you will. And on that clutch shaft, near this internal wall, is a oil seal. Now the next section of the tractor starts right here at this seam. And on a car, this would be what we call the bell housing, or the engine clutch area, right? Well, if you remember from the first video, I also had some oil leaking out of this lower inspection plate below the clutch. So I think what's happening here is not only am I getting leakage from the hydraulic chamber into the transmission side through that internal seal on the clutch shaft here, there is another seal on the clutch shaft over here somewhere that prevents oil from getting from the hydraulic chamber into the bell housing where the clutch is. So I think both of those seals on that clutch shaft are bad. Now it's possible that the oil dripping from that lower inspection plate could be coming from a rear main seal leak on the engine, but I don't think that's what it is, because I've been checking the engine oil on the dipstick periodically and it isn't changing. It's staying right at the full mark. So I think that hydraulic oil was leaking into the bell housing and into the transmission. So you follow me so far on this? This is a little bit more in depth than I thought it was going to be. So the good news is that I think I finally figured out what the problem is and where the problem lies. But the bad news is, not only do I have to split the tractor farther back that way, but I also have to split the tractor down this seam between the bell housing and this intersection. And this middle section here effectively needs to be completely detached from the tractor. So I don't know how I'm going to accomplish that yet, whether it's going to be, you know, lifting it up with a strap or lowering it down below the frame rails. If I do decide to lift it, I'm going to have to remove the fuel tank and God knows what all. And I'm also probably going to have to, you know, finally remove the whole steering column and linkage and components. So if it's possible, I think it would be easier to lower this with the strap down below the frame rail, get it out of the way where we can do our work that way. So now to reinforce everything I've just gone over, here's a diagram of this inner section, or the middle section, that we need to detach. And you can see on this end where they point to that gasket that needs to be replaced. Well, that same exact gasket goes on both sides, so we just need to get 2 of those. So here's a diagram of the transmission shaft, and as you can see, there are no seals on the end of the input shaft here, which I originally thought there might be. And lastly, let's take a look at a diagram of the clutch shaft that I was referring to. And you can see on the diagram where those oil seals are. At the very minimum, I know I'm going to have to replace the one between the hydraulic chamber and the transmission side, but it looks like we'll probably end up having to replace both of them. So that is a little bit discouraging. I thought the seal that we needed to replace was going to be up in here somewhere. But the good news is that I figured it out before I got any further, and I figured it out before, you know, I tried to put it back together or anything like that. So this big job has just turned into a really big job. But ultimately, it's not a big deal. This is just a hobby for me. If the tractor sits here for 6 months, you know, that's not going to be any kind of a problem at all. Of course, I'm the type of guy that likes to get things done. As soon as I figure out, you know, what's wrong, I'm itching to get it fixed. So I will just try to be patient with it, and I hope you guys join me on the next video, and we'll just keep moving forward, keep making progress a little bit at a time. Thanks for watching. As usual, I appreciate the support, and we'll see you guys next time.